The fluorescent lights of Chicago Memorial Hospital buzzed overhead as I stared at the envelope in my trembling hands. 3 a.m, and I was sitting alone in the pediatric wing's break room, my coffee long since gone cold. The return address made my stomach drop. Kellerman and Associates, Medical Malpractice Division. I didn't need to open it to know what was inside, but I did anyway. Dr. Rachel Chen, you are hereby notified of a civil lawsuit in the amount of $3 million for gross negligence, resulting in permanent injury to minor patient Lucas Brennan. The words blurred together. Lucas Brennan, the 8-year-old boy who'd come in 6 months ago with what his parents insisted was just a stomach ache. I'd ordered every test, consulted with specialists, kept him for observation. When Dr. Marcus Webb, the head of our department, reviewed the case, he'd agreed with my assessment: viral gastritis, sent home with clear instructions to return if symptoms worsened. 3 days later, Lucas was back in emergency surgery for a ruptured appendix. He'd survived, but there were complications, and now his parents were suing me for missing the diagnosis. The break room door creaked open, and I quickly wiped my eyes. Dr. Chen? You okay? It was Henry Martinez, the night security guard who'd worked at Chicago Memorial for as long as I could remember. He was somewhere in his late 60s, always wearing the same navy blue uniform, his silver hair neatly combed back. Most staff barely noticed him, but Henry had a way of appearing exactly when you needed him most. I'm fine, Henry, just a long shift. He set down a steaming cup of coffee in front of me. Real coffee, not the sludge from the break room machine. That's from the good cafe down the street. Figured you could use it. I looked up at him, this kind old man who somehow always knew. Thank you. Henry nodded toward the letter. Bad news? The worst. My voice cracked. I'm being sued. $3 million. For a case where I did everything right. He pulled out a chair and sat down, something I'd never seen him do before. Tell me what happened. And I did. Maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe it was the fear, but I told him everything. How I'd ordered a CT scan, but Dr. Webb had countermanded it, saying it was unnecessary radiation exposure for a child. How I'd documented every conversation, every symptom, every clinical decision. How the Brennan's lawyer was painting me as incompetent and careless. The medical board suspended my license pending investigation, I whispered. The hospital put me on administrative leave. I have a 14-year-old daughter, Henry. How am I supposed to pay for her school, our apartment, a lawyer? My ex-husband hasn't paid child support in 2 years. I have maybe 3 months of savings, and a decent malpractice attorney costs $50,000 just to start. Henry listened without interrupting, his dark eyes thoughtful. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. What if you didn't have to fight this alone? He finally said. I laughed bitterly. Unless you know a miracle lawyer who works for free, I'm out of options. I might know someone, but first, Dr. Chen, let me ask you something. Did you make a mistake with that boy? No. The word came out fierce and certain. I followed protocol. I documented everything. I consulted with the attending physician. I did my job. Henry nodded slowly. Then someone else didn't do theirs. That thought had been gnawing at me for weeks, but I'd been too scared to voice it. Doctor, Webb ordered me to discharge Lucas. He's the head of pediatrics. He's been here 20 years. Who's going to believe that he made the wrong call and I'm the one paying for it? Someone will, Henry said, if we can prove it. We? I looked at him, confused. Henry, you're a security guard. I appreciate your support, but will you trust me? He pulled a business card from his pocket and slid it across the table. Call this number tomorrow. Tell them Henry Martinez referred you. They'll take your case. I picked up the card. It was simple, elegant. Morrison and Associates, medical defense attorneys, a downtown Chicago address. Henry, I told you, I can't afford. Just call them, he said, standing up. And Dr. Chen? Start writing down everything you remember about Dr. Webb's decisions on the Brennan case. Dates, times, witnesses, everything. Before I could ask more questions, he was gone, disappearing down the corridor like he always did. I went home as the sun was rising, my mind spinning. My daughter Lily was already up, getting ready for school. At 14, she was too perceptive for her own good. Mom, You look terrible, she said, pausing in the middle of making toast. Thanks, honey. Love you too. Seriously, is it about the lawsuit? I'd tried to shelter her from the details, but Lily had overhead enough phone calls to piece it together. Yeah, but I'm figuring it out. Are we going to have to move? The fear in her voice broke my heart. We'd already downsized twice since the divorce. Our 2-bedroom apartment in Rogers Park wasn't fancy, but it was home. Lily had friends here, a good school. No, I said firmly, even though I wasn't sure. We're going to be fine. She didn't look convinced. Neither was I. That morning, after Lily left for school, I called the number on the card. A receptionist with a crisp, professional voice answered. Morrison and Associates. How may I help you? My name is Dr. Rachel Chen. Henry Martinez referred me? There was a pause. Hold, please. Classical music played for 30 seconds, then a different voice came on. Male, authoritative, with the kind of confidence that came from years in a courtroom. Dr. Chen, I'm Michael Morrison. Henry told me you might call. I've reviewed the preliminary details of your case. Can you come to my office today at 2 o'clock? I won. Yes. But I should tell you up front. I can't afford expensive legal fees right now. We'll discuss fees when you get here. 2 o'clock. Don't be late. He hung up before I could respond. Morrison and Associates occupied the 30th floor of a downtown high-rise with views of Lake Michigan. The office was all dark wood, leather chairs, and legal credentials covering the walls. Michael Morrison himself was in his early 50s, steel gray hair, sharp suit, the kind of lawyer who probably charged $1,000 an hour. I was already planning my exit speech when he gestured to a chair. Henry sent me your case file, he said without preamble. The one you documented, very thorough. You're meticulous. I was taught to be. Good, because we're going to need that. Dr. Chen, I'll be direct. Your case isn't just about a malpractice suit. It's about a cover-up. I felt the blood drain from my face. What? He pulled up a document on his computer and turned the screen toward me. Dr. Marcus Webb has been named in 3 previous malpractice suits. All were settled quietly by the hospital. All involved clinical decisions where he overruled a junior physician's judgment. How did you... I just called you this morning. Henry's a friend. When he asks me to look into something, I look into it. He leaned back in his chair. The Brennan case follows the same pattern. You wanted a CT scan. Webb said no. Child ended up in emergency surgery. Hospitals trying to sacrifice you to protect their department head. But the medical board can be challenged, will be challenged. But Dr. Chen, I need to be honest with you. This is going to be a long fight. We're talking depositions, expert witnesses, possibly a trial. The hospital has deep pockets and a reputation to protect. They'll fight dirty. How much will this cost? Morrison steepled his fingers. For you? Nothing. I stared at him. Nothing? Henry and I have an arrangement. Let's just say I owe him several favors. Consider this one of them. Mr. Morrison, lawyers don't take cases for free, especially not against hospitals. Call me Michael. And you're right, I don't usually. But Henry vouched for you. That's enough for me. He pulled out a contract. Besides, when we win, and we will win, we'll countersue for malicious prosecution, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The hospital will settle for considerably more than $3 million. My firm takes 30% of that settlement. When we win, I repeated. You seem very confident. I spent 20 years as a medical malpractice defense attorney before I switched sides. I know every trick hospitals use. And Dr. Chen, they're using all of them on you. I signed the contract with shaking hands. Over the next 3 weeks, Michael's team went to work. They deposed nurses, reviewed hospital records, interviewed former patients, and slowly, a pattern emerged. Dr. Marcus Webb had been making questionable clinical decisions for years, and the hospital had been covering for him because he brought in major donors and grants. Meanwhile, I was drowning. Without my license, I couldn't work. My savings were evaporating. I applied for jobs at clinics, as a medical consultant, even as a pharmaceutical sales rep. No one wanted to hire a doctor under investigation. It was Henry who saved me, again. He showed up at my apartment one evening. I'd never even told him where I lived, with a bag of groceries and a proposition. The hospital needs someone to review patient files for their digital records conversion, he said. It's grunt work, but it pays $25 an hour. I told them you were available. Henry, I'm suspended. They won't hire me. It's through a contracting company, not the hospital directly. And it's remote work. They need someone who understands medical terminology. He set the groceries on my kitchen counter. Milk, eggs, bread, and some real food. You need to eat, Dr. Chen. Lily appeared from her bedroom, eyeing Henry curiously. Who's this? This is Henry. He's a friend. Henry, this is my daughter, Lily. Nice to meet you, Lily. Henry offered his hand, and she shook it, looking pleasantly surprised by his old-fashioned manners. Are you the security guard Mom talks about? Guilty as charged. She says you make really good coffee recommendations. Henry laughed. Your mom's a good doctor who got a raw deal. I'm just trying to help however I can. Something passed between them, some unspoken understanding. Lily had been so angry and scared these past few weeks, watching me fall apart. But looking at Henry, she seemed to relax slightly. Are you hungry? She asked. I was just making dinner. It's just pasta, but there's enough for 3. Henry glanced at me, and I nodded. We ate together at our small kitchen table, and Henry asked Lily about school, her interests, her life. He didn't treat her like a child, but like a person worth listening to. By the end of the meal, she was smiling for the first time in weeks. After dinner, while Lily did homework, Henry and I stood on the small balcony overlooking the street. Thank you, I said quietly. For everything. The lawyer, the job, this. But Henry, why are you doing all this? You barely know me. He was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the city lights. I had a daughter once. She'd be about your age now. Had? Medical mistake. 28 years ago. She went in for routine surgery, came out brain damaged from anesthesia complications. Lived in a vegetative state for 6 months before we had to let her go. His voice was steady, but I could hear the old pain underneath. The surgeon made an error. The hospital covered it up. By the time we found out the truth, the statute of limitations had passed. We couldn't sue, couldn't get justice, couldn't even get an apology. Henry, I'm so sorry. The worst part? The surgeon kept practicing, made more mistakes. The hospital kept protecting him because he was prestigious, brought in wealthy patients. He turned to look at me. I see a lot of doctors in this hospital, Dr. Chen. Most are good people doing their best. But I also see the ones who cut corners, who let ego override judgment, and I see how hospitals protect the wrong people. Is that why you're here? Working security? He smiled slightly. It's complicated, but yes, partly. I wanted to be around medicine, to understand it better, and maybe to help good doctors when I could. Michael said you two have an arrangement, that he owes you favors. Michael Morrison was my daughter's godfather. He's the one who tried to fight the hospital for us, even though he knew we couldn't win. He promised me he'd never let another family go through what we did. Henry's expression was distant. He keeps that promise. We stood in silence for a while. Finally, Henry said, your deposition is next week. Are you ready? I don't know. What if I mess up? What if I can't remember details? You'll remember. You're thorough. You document everything. Trust yourself, Dr. Chen. The deposition was brutal. The hospital's lawyers spent 6 hours trying to trip me up, questioning every decision I'd made. But I'd prepared. Michael had coached me, and I had my meticulous documentation. The breakthrough came 3 days later. Michael called me, and I could hear the triumph in his voice. We found the smoking gun. One of the nurses from the Brennan case came forward. She has a copy of Dr. Webb's order specifically canceling your CT scan request, and she has notes from a conversation where Webb told her to downplay your concerns in the medical record. She falsified records under Webb's direction. She's willing to testify. She's already been granted immunity by the medical board in exchange for her cooperation. Why would she come forward now? Because Webb tried to throw her under the bus in his own deposition, said any documentation errors were nursing mistakes, not his responsibility. She got angry. Hell hath no fury, I thought. The case shifted rapidly after that. The hospital's lawyers tried to settle, offering to drop the Brennan lawsuit if I agreed not to countersue. Michael laughed in their faces. My client wants her license reinstated, her reputation cleared, and compensation for 3 months of lost income and emotional distress. And she wants Dr. Webb investigated. They refused. So we went to the medical board hearing. I didn't expect Henry to show up, but when I walked into the conference room at the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, there he was, sitting in the back row, still in his security uniform, like he'd come straight from a shift. The hearing took all day. Medical experts testified. The nurse testified. Michael systematically destroyed every argument the hospital made, and when it was my turn to speak, I didn't hold back. I became a doctor to help children. That's all I've ever wanted to do. I followed protocol. I documented everything. I consulted with senior physicians. And when something went wrong, instead of investigating what actually happened, the system tried to destroy my career to protect someone who's been making dangerous decisions for years. I looked directly at the board members. How many other doctors has Dr. Webb hung out to dry? How many patients have suffered because the hospital cared more about prestige than safety? I'm not asking you to take my side. I'm asking you to look at the evidence and do what's right. The board deliberated for 2 hours. When they returned, the chairwoman's expression was stern. Dr. Chen, after reviewing all evidence, this board finds no merit to the charges against you. Your license is reinstated effective immediately. Furthermore, we are opening a formal investigation into Dr. Marcus Webb and the practices of Chicago Memorial Hospital's pediatric department. I nearly collapsed with relief. Michael squeezed my shoulder. Behind me, I heard Henry say quietly, "Well done." The Brennan family's lawsuit was dropped the next day. A week later, the hospital offered a settlement, $300,000, a formal letter of apology, and a guaranteed position if I wanted to return to Chicago Memorial. I turned down the job. Instead, I took a position at a smaller hospital on the South Side, one that served underprivileged communities. The pay was less, but the mission mattered. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Henry and I started meeting for coffee every week, real coffee, from the Good Cafe downtown. We'd talk about medicine, about life, about Lily's progress in school. She'd started volunteering at a local animal shelter, something she'd always wanted to do but we'd never been able to afford the time for during the chaos. One evening, about 2 months after the hearing, Henry arrived at our usual cafe in a suit. Not his security uniform, but an actual tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Did someone die?" I asked, gesturing to his clothes. He smiled. "No, but I figured it was time to stop playing dress-up." "What?" He pulled out his phone and showed me an article. The headline read, "Retired Federal Judge Henry Martinez, elected to Illinois Medical Board." I stared at him. "You're a judge?" "Was. I retired from the federal bench 8 years ago. Spent 30 years in healthcare law." He pocketed his phone. "After my daughter died, I wanted to understand the medical world from the inside, so I took a job as hospital security. Minimum wage, night shifts, watching, learning." 8 years, I said slowly. "You spent 8 years working security to—" "What? Study hospitals? To find good doctors worth protecting, to understand how the system works. And yes, to help when I could." He met my eyes. "You're not the first physician I've assisted, Dr. Chen, but you're the first one I'm telling the truth to." "Why me?" "Because you deserved to know. And because—" He hesitated. "The medical board position is full-time. I'm giving up the security job. I wanted you to hear it from me, not through hospital gossip." "You're leaving?" "Not leaving. Changing roles. I'll be overseeing hospital compliance, investigating complaints, working to reform the system." He smiled. "Doing what I should have been able to do 28 years ago." "Does Michael know?" "Michael's known the whole time. He's the one who encouraged me to apply for the board position, said I'd done enough field research." Henry's expression grew serious. "Rachel, can I call you Rachel now? What happened to you happens to too many good doctors. The system protects the wrong people. I want to change that." "Judge Martinez," I said, testing the title. "Henry's fine. Judge Martinez is for official business and people I'm investigating. He grinned. You, I consider a friend. My phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Is Mr. Henry still coming for dinner? I made his favorite brownies. I showed Henry the message. His eyes softened. She's a good kid. Reminds me of, he stopped. Of your daughter? Yeah. Sarah would have been about your age. She wanted to be a doctor too. Pediatrician, specifically. He smiled sadly. I like to think she'd be proud of what I'm doing now, using what happened to her to help others. She would be, I said firmly. Henry, you saved my career, my life. I don't know how to thank you. You already have. You stood up to the system. You fought back. That matters. He stood, straightening his suit jacket. Now come on, those brownies aren't going to eat themselves. And Lily told me she wants my opinion on her science fair project about antibiotic resistance. You're spoiling her. Someone should. She's had a rough year too. As we walked to my apartment, Henry told me about his plans for the medical board. Stricter oversight, better whistleblower protections, mandatory reviews of doctors with multiple malpractice settlements. HIAL reform. The system's broken, he said. But it can be fixed. One case at a time. Lily met us at the door, practically bouncing with excitement. Mr. Henry, I got an A on my English essay. And the science fair is next month. And is that a new suit? It is. You like it? You look like a TV lawyer now instead of a security guard. Close. Judge. I'm rejoining the land of courtrooms and paperwork. Lily's eyes widened. You're a judge? Like, for real? For real. Retired, but coming out of retirement for a special position. Someone has to keep hospitals honest. She looked between us, processing. So that's how you helped Mom. You knew all the legal stuff. And I knew good people are worth fighting for. That night, after Lily went to bed, Henry and I sat on the balcony with coffee, looking out at the city. I got the official offer today, I said. Chief of Pediatrics at Community Care Chicago, starting next month. You're taking it? I think so. It's a small hospital, but they're doing good work, and they specifically want someone who'll prioritize patient care over politics. I paused. It feels right. Sarah would have loved that. The work, I mean. The mission. He was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? Of course. When I met you that night in the break room, you weren't the first doctor I'd watched, but you were the first one who fought back while still being kind. You stood your ground about patient care, but you never became bitter. You documented everything not to cover yourself, but to protect the truth. That's rare. I was terrified. Being terrified and being kind aren't mutually exclusive. Neither are being scared and being brave. He smiled. You're going to be a great chief of pediatrics. Thanks to you. Thanks to your own skills and integrity, I just made sure the right people saw them. A few months later, I attended Henry's swearing-in ceremony for the Illinois Medical Board. Michael Morrison was there, beaming with pride. Lily came with me, dressed up in the outfit she'd worn to her 8th grade graduation. During his acceptance speech, Henry said something I'll never forget. 28 years ago, I learned that our medical system sometimes protects the wrong people for the wrong reasons. Today, I stand before you committed to changing that, not through vengeance, but through vigilance. Not through punishment, but through protection of those who dedicate their lives to healing others. To every good doctor who's been scapegoated, every whistleblower who's been silenced, every patient who's been failed by bureaucracy, I see you. And I won't stop fighting until the system works for you, not against you. The room erupted in applause. Afterward, at the small reception, Michael pulled me aside. Henry doesn't tell many people about Sarah, he said quietly. The fact that he told you means he trusts you. That's not something he gives easily. He saved my life. He saved a lot of lives. Most people never know he was the one pulling strings behind the scenes. Michael sipped his champagne. Between you and me, half the medical reform legislation passed in Illinois over the past 5 years, Henry wrote it. He just had other people introduce it. He's been working in security and writing laws? Henry Martinez doesn't do anything by half measures. Never has. Michael smiled. He spent 8 years studying the medical system from the inside specifically so he could fix it from the inside. That's dedication. Or obsession. Sometimes the line's pretty thin. As the evening wound down, Lily tugged my sleeve. "Mom, can we invite Judge Henry to my science fair? He helped me with my project." "Of course, honey." She ran off to ask him, and I watched as his stern, judicial face softened into a warm smile. He knelt down to her level, this man who'd been a federal judge, who'd spent 8 years working midnight security shifts, who'd saved my career, and listened intently as my 14-year-old daughter explained antibiotic resistance with teenage enthusiasm. That's when I understood. Henry hadn't just helped me. He'd helped dozens, maybe hundreds of people like me, doctors who'd been wronged, patients who'd been failed, families who'd been ignored. He'd turned his grief into purpose, his pain into protection for others. And maybe, just maybe, he'd found a kind of peace. 6 months into my new position as chief of pediatrics, I got a call from Henry. "There's a resident at St. Catherine's Hospital being blamed for a surgical complication that wasn't her fault," he said without preamble. "The attending surgeon made an error. The hospital's trying to sacrifice the resident. Can you look at the case file?" I smiled. "Send it over. We'll figure it out." "We?" "You taught me how the system works, how to fight it, how to protect the good ones." I leaned back in my office chair, looking at the framed photo on my desk. Lily, Henry, and me at her science fair, all 3 of us grinning. "That's what we do now, right? We protect the good ones?" Henry laughed, warm and genuine. "Yeah, Rachel, that's exactly what we do." As I hung up, I thought about that night in the break room when I'd been at my lowest point, when a security guard had brought me good coffee and asked if I was okay, when I'd had no idea that my life was about to change forever. Sometimes salvation comes from unexpected places. Sometimes the person who saves you is wearing a security uniform and has wise eyes and a past full of pain. Sometimes the system is broken, but there are people working to fix it, one case at a time. And sometimes, when you're drowning, someone throws you a lifeline, not because they have to, not because there's anything in it for them, but because they know what it's like to drown, and they refuse to let it happen to anyone else. That's who Henry Martinez is, my unlikely savior, my daughter's honorary grandfather, my friend, the man who taught me that integrity matters, that documentation saves lives, that sometimes the quietest people are the ones changing the world. And that good coffee, real coffee from the cafe down the street, can make even the worst night a little better. I opened my laptop and pulled up the case file Henry sent. Another good doctor, another hospital cover-up, another fight. But this time, I knew what to do. This time, we'd win. Because that's what we do. Henry taught me that. We protect the good ones.